The cold beginning, the great hall of the alien empire, was not built for humans. Its walls stretched high like mountains of gold and black stone. Towers of light fell from above, cutting through the shadows. Giant statues of alien conquerors stood with weapons in hand, looking down at anyone who dared to enter. The throne at the center was carved from shining metal, glowing with lines of fire, and on that throne sat the Emperor of the Galaxy. His eyes were sharp, his face calm, but the way he leaned back told everyone that this place belonged to him and only him. The heavy doors of the hall opened with a slow rumble. Soldiers in golden armor marched forward. Their helmets hid their faces, but their movements were perfect, like machines trained for war. Between them walked a single prisoner. He was not young. His back was slightly bent, his beard was white, and his head was bald. But his steps were steady. He wore chains across his chest and arms, the sound of metal echoing against the floor with every move he made. This was the last human the Empire wanted to display. An old man captured far away on a forgotten world. To the aliens, he looked broken and small. To them, he was nothing but a relic, dragged out to remind the galaxy that humans had lost. The throne room filled with laughter. The nobles of the Empire, dressed in shining robes and strange jewels, whispered to each other. Some of them pointed at the old man and shook their heads. Others leaned closer and laughed more loudly. To them, this was entertainment. A reminder of their strength. Is this what remains of humanity? One alien voice rang out. A weak old body dressed in chains? The Emperor did not speak yet. His gaze studied the human carefully, as if he wanted to see something more. The old man did not look back at the Emperor. His eyes did not wander to the laughing nobles. He only stared ahead, calm, silent, and cold. The guards forced him to kneel before the throne. The chains pulled at his arms, pressing his shoulders down. Still he did not resist, and he did not bow his head. He remained upright, even as the heavy chains pressed on his skin. Look at him, another alien laughed. He cannot fight. He cannot even stand without our mercy. The old man finally moved. He lifted his face and looked around the golden hall. His eyes were pale, but they held a sharpness that made some nobles stop laughing. He did not blink often. He did not look afraid. The silence of his stare began to spread across the hall. The laughter grew thinner, weaker. Some aliens frowned, others shifted in their seats. No one understood why the old man's silence felt so heavy. The Emperor raised one hand, and the hall became quiet. His voice was low but powerful, carrying through the air like thunder. "You are the last voice of your people," the Emperor said. "Your kind has fallen. Your worlds burn. Your fleets are dust. And still you walk into this hall with your head held high. Tell me, human, do you not feel shame?" The old man did not answer. His silence pressed harder against the golden walls. Even the soldiers shifted slightly, unsure if he was foolish or fearless. The Emperor leaned forward, his eyes glowing in the throne's light. "Your people are finished. You are no more than a dying flame. Speak now, and perhaps I will let the galaxy remember you as something greater than a broken race." The old man closed his eyes for a moment. He breathed slowly, the sound of air passing through dry lips. Then he opened them again, and the calmness in his gaze was colder than before. Still he did not speak. The nobles began to laugh again, louder this time, their voices echoing across the tall hall. "He is afraid," one shouted. "He has nothing left to say." But the Emperor kept watching, and deep inside something unsettled him. The chains rattled softly as the old man straightened his back. He was thin, scarred, and aged. Yet as he stood against the light of the throne, for a brief second he looked taller than the soldiers around him. He still did not speak, and that silence, more than any word, made the hall feel colder. One of the generals stepped forward, armored in gold with a long black cape. He sneered at the prisoner and said, "You humans fought like insects, weak, disorganized, always running. And now here stands your final leader, an old man in chains. History will not remember your kind." The general expected anger. He expected the prisoner to shout or weep. But the old man only turned his head slowly and met the general's eyes. That stare was not broken. It was not weak. It was steady, sharp, and ancient. The general stopped speaking. For the first time that day, a ripple of unease passed through the throne room. The emperor sat back in his seat and let the silence grow once more. The old man's lips finally moved, but no words came out. He seemed to test the weight of his voice, as if deciding when to let it be heard. The guards pulled at his chains, forcing him back down, but still he stood firm. And then the narrator's voice cuts through, carrying the suspense to the audience. They believed he was broken. They believed humanity had been erased. But they did not yet understand why this old man still smiled in silence. And they did not know the storm that his silence was about to unleash. The mockery. The silence of the throne room did not last long. Soon the nobles of the alien empire began to laugh again, though this time it sounded thinner, almost forced. Their voices rose to cover their unease, filling the golden hall with sharp echoes. The old human remained standing in his chains, his eyes steady, his face calm. His silence pressed against them like a heavy weight. But the empire refused to let it win. One noble stood, his skin dark silver, his long arms covered in jeweled bands. He raised his voice so all could hear. Look at him. Look at the last human. Once they screamed across the stars, claiming they were bold explorers, claiming they were warriors. And now, he pointed a long finger, now we see the truth. A bent back, a broken body, a relic no different than dust. Laughter broke out again. The nobles clapped their hands, their jewelry flashing in the throne's light. The old man did not answer. His stare did not move. The general with the black cape stepped forward once more. His armor glowed in the hall's light, each plate carved with the symbols of his victories. His voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. Humanity fought us with fire, he said. Your fleets swarmed like insects. Your armies bled on every world. You thought yourselves brave. You thought yourselves strong. But what did it gain you? Ashes, graves, silence. He walked closer, standing so near that the chains of the old man rattled. You are nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. The old man's lips curved ever so slightly. It was not a wide smile. It was small, almost invisible. But to those who saw it, it felt like thunder in their chest. The general's hand twitched. He wanted to strike, but he did not. He only leaned closer and hissed, Your kind begged for mercy when we burned your colonies. They screamed when our blades cut them down. Tell me, old man, will you beg too? Will you kneel for mercy before the empire? The hall grew quiet. Everyone leaned forward, waiting for an answer, but no answer came. Only silence. The old man's eyes, pale and sharp, met the general's without fear. He did not blink. He did not turn away. The silence burned hotter than words. The nobles shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their laughter returned, but now it was scattered, uneven. They tried to sound strong, but doubt was crawling into their voices. Why do you not speak? One noble shouted, her voice high and cruel. Are you so broken that your tongue no longer works? Say something, human. Say something before you are forgotten forever. Still, the prisoner was silent. The emperor raised one hand again, and the hall fell still. His golden eyes narrowed. His voice rumbled low, shaking the air. You do not speak because you have nothing to say. Humanity is gone. Your fleets destroyed. Your worlds turned to ash. There is no one left to hear you. Speak now, and perhaps I will let the galaxy remember your words. Or stay silent, and history will bury you. The old man's head tilted slightly, as if weighing the emperor's challenge. His chains clinked as he shifted his shoulders, straightening his back. He looked smaller than the throne, smaller than the towering soldiers beside him, but something in his presence filled the hall. He opened his mouth. The nobles leaned closer. The soldiers froze. Even the emperor leaned forward on his throne. A sound came, but it was not begging. It was not fear, it was a laugh, low, deep, steady. The sound rolled through the hall, bouncing off golden walls, breaking into every corner of the chamber. It was not the laugh of a broken man. It was the laugh of someone who knew something they did not. The nobles' faces twisted. Some frowned. Others hissed in anger. He dares to laugh at us. The general's fist clenched tight. He wanted to silence that laugh with a single strike. But the emperor raised his hand once more, stopping him. "Let him speak," the emperor said. His voice was sharp, his eyes burning. "Let us hear what amusement a dying species can find in the hall of their conquerors." The old man's laughter stopped. He looked up at the emperor with calm eyes. His lips moved, but his words came slowly, like stone grinding against stone. "You speak of graves," he said. His voice was rough yet strong. "You speak of ashes. You speak of silence. But you do not know humanity." The hall went still. The nobles looked at each other, their whispers silenced. The soldiers shifted uneasily. The emperor's eyes narrowed further. The old man continued, his voice echoing across the throne room. "We are not finished. We are not erased. Humanity does not beg. Humanity does not break. We endure and we rise." His chains rattled as he lifted his head higher. The emperor's lips curved slightly, not into a smile, but into something colder. "Is that what you believe, old man? That your kind can rise again?" The old man's gaze did not waver. "I do not believe. I know." The words hung heavy in the hall, pressing into every ear. For the first time, the laughter did not return. The nobles did not clap or jeer. They only stared, unsure if they had just witnessed the ramblings of a prisoner, or the warning of something far greater. The emperor leaned back in his throne, his golden eyes locked on the human, and in that silence, a dangerous thought began to bloom across the hall. What if the old man was telling the truth? The revelation, the golden hall of the alien empire, was now filled with silence. No one laughed. No one spoke. The old man's words had cut through the room like a blade sharper than any weapon. His chains rattled as he straightened his back, and in that small sound, the nobles heard something they did not want to believe: strength. The emperor leaned back on his throne, his fingers tapping slowly on the armrest, carved with glowing runes. His golden eyes never left the prisoner. "Bold words," the emperor said. His voice was calm, but beneath it a shadow of curiosity grew. "You claim your kind endures. You claim your kind rises. But I see only a dying flame. Where is your proof, human? Show me this strength, or your words are nothing but dust in the wind." The old man lifted his head. His face was calm, but his eyes held a fire that even the golden lights of the throne could not drown. "My proof," he said slowly, "is in the very halls of this empire." The nobles stirred, their whispers rising again. Some laughed nervously. Others frowned and shook their heads. The general with the black cape stepped forward once more. His voice was sharp with anger. "Enough riddles, human. Speak clearly before I silence you myself." The old man turned his gaze on him, and though his body was bound, his eyes alone pushed the general back a step. "You conquered our colonies," the old man said. "You burned our worlds. You thought we were broken, but humans do not vanish like smoke. We bury ourselves deep. We wait, we prepare, and we rise when you least expect it." His words echoed across the high walls, bouncing between the golden pillars and striking the ears of every noble in the chamber. The emperor's fingers stopped tapping. His eyes narrowed. "Are you saying there are more of you? That humanity survives beyond the ashes we left?" The old man smiled faintly, and that smile chilled the room more than any scream could have. "Survives?" he asked. His voice was steady, slow, and cold. "No, we do more than survive. We grow." The whispers of the nobles rose into shouts. Some stood from their seats, their long robes swaying as they pointed accusing fingers at the prisoner. "Lies," one shouted. "Tricks," cried another. "He speaks to frighten us." But even as they shouted, their voices cracked with unease. The emperor raised his hand, and the hall fell silent once more. His golden eyes bored into the prisoner. "You claim your kind grows. Yet I have seen your worlds burn. I have seen your fleets shattered. Where are these humans, old man? Where are these armies you speak of?" The old man's voice grew softer, but it carried farther than before, sinking into every corner of the hall. "Not where you look," he said. "Not where you expect. You think you see everything because your empire spreads across the stars. But there are shadows even your light cannot touch. There are places even your fleets cannot hold. Humanity is there, waiting, watching, preparing. A shiver passed through the hall. The nobles no longer laughed. Their jeweled hands clutched the edges of their seats. The emperor leaned forward, his golden crown catching the light. His voice was colder now, stripped of amusement. "You are a prisoner in chains. Do you expect me to believe your people hide in the dark, waiting for the day they can rise again? That is nothing but the dream of a dying race." The old man's eyes locked on him. "A dying race does not stand here and look its conqueror in the eye. A dying race does not endure centuries of fire. We are not dead, Emperor. We are the storm that sleeps, and soon we will wake." His words cut into the silence like thunder. The guards shifted, their armor clinking as unease passed through their ranks. The generals glanced at each other, their faces uncertain. The nobles no longer shouted. They only whispered, their voices thin and fearful. The general with the black cape raised his hand, trembling with anger. "This is madness. He lies. Humanity is gone. I myself burned their colonies. I saw their ships break against our fleets. There is nothing left." The old man turned his head slowly toward him. His eyes were steady, his voice quiet but firm. "You saw what we allowed you to see." The words struck harder than a blade. The general froze, his anger trapped by sudden doubt. The emperor sat back once more, though his golden eyes never wavered. His voice was calm, but beneath it was a weight of unease. "You speak as though you are not alone. You speak as though even now your kind gathers in the shadows. Tell me, old man, is war still in the heart of your people?" The prisoner's lips curved into a smile once more, faint and dangerous. His chains rattled softly as he lifted his head higher. "War," he said, his voice clear, "is not in our hearts. It is in our blood." The hall went still. The nobles said nothing. The generals dared not move. Even the emperor's golden gaze darkened, as if he had heard something he could not dismiss. The old man's silence returned, pressing on the hall like a storm waiting to break, and though he stood bound in chains for the first time, it felt as though the prisoner was no longer the weakest one in the room. The words that ignite war. The golden throne room was silent. The old human's last words still hung in the air, cold and sharp. "War is not in our hearts. It is in our blood." No noble dared to laugh. No general dared to speak. Even the great emperor of the galaxy sat back slowly, his golden eyes locked on the prisoner with a look that was no longer only curiosity. There was something else now. Unease. The silence was broken not by words, but by the sound of chains. The old man shifted his arms, the heavy iron links rattling as he lifted his head higher. Though his body was bent with age, though his back carried the weight of chains, his presence filled the room like fire spreading through dry wood. Finally, one noble could not bear the silence. His long silver face twisted into anger. He rose from his seat and shouted, "You speak as if you hold power, human. But you are nothing, a prisoner in chains standing alone. Do you not see? The Empire rules the stars, and your kind is gone." His voice rang out, but it sounded thin against the silence. The old man did not answer him. His eyes did not even move. He only stood taller, his calm gaze fixed on the Emperor. The Emperor raised his hand, silencing the noble. His golden eyes narrowed. "Enough of games. You have spoken in riddles, old man. You speak of shadows, of storms, of blood. But now I command you to speak clearly. What do you mean? What is it that humanity prepares?" The old man finally spoke, his voice low but steady, carrying to every corner of the hall. "You believe you broke us. You believe we are finished. But you never understood humanity. When we fall, we do not die. We wait, we learn. We sharpen our blades in silence. We make war in the dark while you sleep in the light." The generals stiffened. The nobles whispered nervously. Some turned to one another with questions in their eyes, as if unsure whether they were listening to the madness of an old man or the warning of a prophet. The emperor leaned forward, his crown catching the glow of the throne's fire. "So that is your truth? You claim your kind rises again, hidden in the shadows. You claim humanity is ready to fight once more?" The old man's chains rattled as he took one step forward, forcing the guards to press their spears against his back. He did not flinch. His voice rose louder, clearer, stronger. You think humanity hides in fear? But we are not hiding. We are watching. We are waiting. And when we strike, it will not be one world, not one fleet, not one army. It will be all of us, every survivor, every soldier, every child who still remembers the fire you brought to our homes. And when that day comes, his voice thundered now, echoing across the golden walls. The galaxy will remember that humanity does not kneel. Humanity fights. Humanity endures. And humanity will give you the war you begged for. The last word shook the hall like an explosion. You want war. His eyes blazed as he spoke. Then we will give you war. The hall froze. The guards stepped back in fear. The nobles no longer whispered. Their eyes were wide, their hands clutching their robes. Even the generals, men who had commanded fleets and burned worlds, stood in silence, their faces pale with something they rarely felt. Doubt. The emperor did not move for a long time. His golden eyes studied the human as though weighing his every word. He had conquered countless races. He had broken empires and raised his own flag across thousands of stars. Yet something in this prisoner's voice carried more weight than entire fleets. The old man's chains clinked again as he lowered his arms. His voice grew quiet, but it still carried like a whisper that refused to fade. You laugh at me. You mock me, but you cannot erase what I am. I'm not only one man. I'm every soldier who bled. I am every child who cried. I am every voice you silenced. You can chain me here, but you cannot chain humanity. We are coming, the nobles shivered. The generals looked at the emperor for guidance, but the emperor remained silent. His golden eyes flickered, not with fear, but with something close to respect. Finally, he leaned back on his throne. His voice was calm, though the weight of his words carried far. Take him away, he said. The guards hesitated before moving, their hands trembling as they gripped the chains. The old man did not resist. He walked with slow, steady steps, his head high, but his words remained in the hall, burning like fire in dry air. The nobles whispered nervously to each other, their voices sharp with fear. What if he speaks the truth? What if humans still fight? The generals exchanged uneasy glances, doubt creeping into their eyes, and the emperor, though his face was calm, stared at the throne room doors long after the prisoner had been taken away. His golden fingers tapped slowly on the armrest, but his mind was far away, chasing thoughts he had long believed impossible. In the silence that followed, one question echoed across every corner of the golden hall. What if the old human was not lying? The spark of humanity's revenge. The doors of the throne room closed behind the old man. The golden chains dragged across the floor as the guards led him away, but his words did not leave with him. They stayed in the hall, burning in the air, whispering inside every mind. You want war? Then we will give you war. The nobles tried to laugh again, tried to regain their pride, but their voices shook. Some avoided each other's eyes. Some whispered, what if it is true? Their laughter had no strength left. The generals stood in silence. These were warriors who had commanded fleets across the stars, who had burned entire worlds until nothing but ash remained. Yet the words of one old prisoner had shaken them more than the fire of any battle. They remembered the human fleets that had once fought with desperation. They remembered soldiers who had kept fighting even when defeat was certain. And now they wondered, what if those soldiers had never stopped? The emperor sat unmoving on his throne, his golden eyes fixed on the doors. He said nothing, but his fingers tapped against the armrest. Each tap was slow, thoughtful, like the ticking of a clock. Outside the hall, the prisoner was led through long corridors of black stone and gold. The guards kept their spears pressed against his back, but their steps were nervous. Some glanced at each other, their hands trembling on their weapons. None of them spoke, for silence felt safer. The old man walked without fear. His chains rattled, but he walked tall. His eyes did not wander. He did not look at the walls or the soldiers. He walked as if he already knew where he was going, as if he had seen this path before. In the shadows above the corridor, tiny lights flickered for a second. The guards did not notice, but the old man did. His eyes narrowed faintly, and for the first time since entering the palace, his lips curved into a hidden smile. Far away, beyond the alien capital, signals moved through the void of space. They were not large. They were not loud. They were whispers carried between hidden relays, moving faster than the Empire's patrols could trace. These signals reached places the aliens had never cared to search, forgotten mining colonies, old asteroid outposts, barren moons, and there, in the silence of the dark, humans stirred. Engines hummed in the shadows of broken ships that had been rebuilt in secret. Soldiers trained in underground halls, their weapons old but sharpened. Children listened as elders told them of the day their worlds burned, and of the promise that one day humanity would rise again. The words of the prisoner had not been for the emperor. They had not been for the nobles, nor the generals. They were for the hidden human ear, listening from the shadows. And now those ears heard, and now those hearts burned. In one forgotten system, a ship came to life. Its hull was scarred, its weapons patched with stolen parts. But when its engines roared, it carried the strength of 1,000 silent voices. In another system, deep inside a hollowed moon, a message appeared on a cracked screen. The war begins. Hands reached for weapons, eyes filled with fire. Humanity rose. Back in the palace, the prisoner was locked inside a cell of black stone. The guards slammed the door and stepped away quickly, as if afraid to stay near. They did not notice the faint sound that followed, the soft pulse of a hidden signal carried from the chains around the old man's wrists. He sat in the dark, his back against the wall, his face calm. His eyes closed, and for the first time he whispered words too soft for anyone outside to hear. They will come. The Empire believed it had ended humanity. It believed the old man was nothing but a relic, a prisoner to mock. But the truth was different. The truth was that his capture was no defeat. It was a message carried into the heart of the Empire itself. The Emperor still sat on his throne, but his thoughts were far away. He remembered battles fought long ago, when human ships had refused to retreat, even when destruction was certain. He remembered soldiers who fought to the last breath. He remembered their fire, their rage, their refusal to kneel. And for the first time in many years, he wondered if the Empire had made a mistake. The nobles whispered fearfully. The generals argued in quiet voices, but none of them could silence the thought that now haunted the hall. What if the human had spoken the truth? The old man's words spread across the Empire like cracks in glass. They reached soldiers, workers, slaves, and even some who once laughed at the prisoner. A seed of fear was planted, and once planted it grew, and far away in the darkness between stars, humanity prepared. They were no longer broken. They were no longer silent. They were waiting. The day would come when fleets would rise from shadows, when hidden worlds would burn with fire not of defeat, but of vengeance. The day would come when the galaxy would learn that the laughter of the Empire had been too loud, too soon. The spark had been lit, and from that spark a storm was coming, a storm called humanity.